Finish, Mouston, finish the work!" cried Porthos, and he darted on beside his friend, who had already begun a fresh pursuit. "Well," said Porthos. "I've broken my man's skull," cried D'Artagnan. "And you?" "I've only thrown the fellow down. But hark! Another shot of a carbine was heard. It was Mousqueton, who was obeying his master's command. On, cried D'Artagnan. "All goes well, we have the first throw." "Ha, ha," answered Porthos. "Behold, other players appear. Rear, rear." And, in fact, two other cavaliers made their appearance. Detached, as it seemed, from the principal group, they again disputed the road. This time the lieutenant did not wait for the opposite party to speak. "Stand aside," he cried, "stand off the road." "What do you want?" asked a voice. "The duke." Porthos and D'Artagnan roared out both at once. A burst of laughter was the answer, but finished with a groan. D'Artagnan had, with his sword, cut in two the poor wretch who had laughed. At the same time Porthos and his adversary fired on each other, and D'Artagnan turned to him. "Bravo, you've killed him." "I think no, wounded his horse only. What would you have?" "My dear fellow, one doesn't hit the bull's-eye every time it is something to hit inside the ring. Ho, parbleu, what is the matter with my horse?" "Your horse is falling," said Porthos, reining in his own. In truth, the lieutenant's horse stumbled and fell on his knees, then a rattling in his throat was heard, and he lay down to die. He had received in the chest the bullet of D'Artagnan's first adversary. D'Artagnan swore loud enough to be heard in the skies. "Does your honour want a horse?" asked Mousqueton. "Zounds, want one!" cried the Gascon. "Here's one." "Your honour, how the devil hast thou two horses?" asked D'Artagnan, jumping on one of them. "Their masters are dead. I thought they might be useful, so I took them." Meantime Porthos had reloaded his pistols. "Be on the qui vive," cried D'Artagnan. "Here are two other cavaliers." As he spoke, two horsemen advanced at full speed. "Ho, your honour!" cried Mousqueton. "The man you upset is getting up." "Why didn't thou do as thou didst to the first man?" said Porthos. "I held the horses. My hands were full, your honour." A shot was fired. That moment Mousqueton shrieked with pain. "Ah, sir, am hit in the other side exactly opposite the other. This hurt is just the fellow of the one I had on the road to Amiens." Porthos turned around like a lion, plunged on the dismounted cavalier, who tried to draw his sword, but before it was out of the scabbard, Porthos, with the hilt of his had struck him such a terrible blow on the head that he fell like an ox beneath the butcher's knife. Mousqueton, groaning, slipped from his horse, his wound not allowing him to keep the saddle. On perceiving the cavaliers, D'Artagnan had stopped and charged his pistol afresh. Besides, his horse, he found, had a carbine on the bow of the saddle. "Here I am!" exclaimed Porthos. "Shall we wait, or shall we charge?" "Let us charge them," answered the Gascon. "Charge!" cried Porthos. They spurred on their horses. The other cavaliers were only 20 steps from them. "For the king!" cried D'Artagnan. "The king has no authority here," answered a deep voice, which seemed to proceed from a cloud. So enveloped was the cavalier in a whirlwind of dust. "'Tis well. We will see if the king's name is not a passport everywhere," replied the Gascon. "See," answered the voice. Two shots were fired at once, one by D'Artagnan, the other by the adversary of Porthos. D'Artagnan's ball took off his enemy's hat. The ball fired by Porthos's foe went through the throat of his horse, which fell, groaning. For the last time, "Where are you going?" "To the devil," answered D'Artagnan. "Good, you may be easy. Then you'll get there." D'Artagnan then saw a musket barrel levelled at him. He had no time to draw from his holsters. He recalled a bit of advice which Athos had once given him, and made his horse rear. The ball struck the animal full in front. D'Artagnan felt his horse giving way under him, and with his wonderful agility threw himself to one side. On this, cried the voice, the tone of which was at once polished and jeering, "This is nothing but a butchery of horses, and not a combat between men. To the sword? Sir, the sword!" And he jumped off his horse. "To the swords be it so," replied D'Artagnan. "That is exactly what I want.